I got a notification from her iCloud. New video saved. It was her, drunk, laughing, being carried into a bedroom by two guys at a party. When I showed up 10 minutes later and opened the door, the notification came in while the apartment was quiet enough for me to hear the refrigerator hum from the kitchen. I had been sitting on the couch scrolling without paying attention to anything in particular, killing time the way people do when they believe nothing important is happening. Ria had texted earlier that she was already at the party and that it was loud, messy, and nothing serious. I did not question it because I had no reason to. That was the version of our relationship I trusted. The alert slid across my screen without urgency, just a system message, the kind you usually swipe away without reading. New video saved. iCloud. The timestamp was current. I opened it without expectation. The video did not start focused. It shook, tilted, caught ceiling lights and blurred faces. Then it settled long enough for me to recognize her laugh before I saw her. Ria was in the center of the frame, unsteady on her feet, smiling too wide, her head lolling back as if gravity had stopped making sense. Two men were holding her up, one on each side, their hands not placed to support, but to guide. They were moving down a narrow hallway. Someone behind the camera laughed and said something I could not fully hear, and Ria laughed louder in response. The laughter did not sound happy. It sounded careless. The hallway ended at a door. One of the men leaned forward and pushed it open. The video cut off before they crossed the threshold. I watched it again immediately, slower this time, looking for context that might change what I had just seen. It did not. The same detail stood out. The way her feet dragged. The way the men did not ask anything. The way no one stopped them. I did not message her. I did not call. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door without turning off the lights. The address was embedded in the file metadata. I noticed that only because my hands were shaking and I needed something mechanical to focus on. The drive took less than 10 minutes, though it felt longer because my mind kept replaying the last second of the clip, the open doorway, the cut to black. The house was impossible to miss. Cars lined both sides of the street in ways that ignored driveways and fire lanes. Music spilled out through open windows, bass heavy enough to vibrate the steering wheel when I parked. I got out and walked straight up to the front door without slowing. Inside, the air was thick with alcohol and heat. Someone bumped into me and laughed without looking back. I pushed forward, ignoring the way people stared when they realized I did not belong to the party rhythm. Someone tried to stop me near the living room, asked who I was looking for, told me the upstairs was off limits. I did not answer. I kept moving. The hallway from the video was easy to find once I reached the second floor. It was narrower than I expected, the walls scuffed from bodies brushing past them. A group of people stood near the end, blocking the door. I recognized none of them. One of them stepped forward and told me I needed to leave. I pushed past him. Drink spilled. Someone swore loudly. The bedroom door was half closed. I opened it fully. Ria was on the bed. She was upright but slumped, hair tangled, makeup smeared in a way that did not happen accidentally. One man stood near the dresser pulling on his shoes too slowly, as if he expected to finish before anyone noticed. The second man was not in the room at first. I realized a moment later he was in the bathroom when the door creaked open behind me. Ria saw me and froze, her expression shifting through confusion, irritation, and something like fear before settling on defiance. She said my name like I was interrupting something unimportant. She reached for the blanket and pulled it higher. People rushed into the room behind me. Someone closed the door. The space felt smaller instantly, the air heavier. Everyone started talking at once, voices overlapping, explaining, minimizing, deflecting. No one asked why I was there. No one asked what I had seen. The man from the bathroom avoided my eyes as he moved past me, muttering something about misunderstanding. Someone else laughed too loudly and said this was being blown out of proportion. Ria spoke over them, telling me she was fine, telling me I was embarrassing her, telling me I needed to calm down. I did not raise my voice. I did not step toward her. I stood where I was and took in details I would not forget later. The way no one looked surprised. The way the explanations came too fast. The way the bed was already stripped of anything that might have told a clearer story. Someone suggested I leave. Someone else suggested they call the police if I did not. I realized then that the room had decided who the problem was, and it was not Ria. I walked out without saying anything else. The door closed behind me, and the music swallowed the moment as if it had never happened. Outside, the night air felt colder than it should have. I sat in my car for a moment without starting it, replaying the sequence of events, noticing how the video, the room, and the reactions fit together too neatly. I drove home slowly, aware that something fundamental had shifted even if no one had admitted it yet. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone had already started buzzing. Messages came in rapid succession, all carrying the same tone disguised as concern. I was told Ria was upset. I was told I had scared her. I was told I had misinterpreted what I saw. I was told the video meant nothing. I was told to apologize. Ria arrived 20 minutes later without warning. She let herself in using the spare key, walked straight past me, and sat on the couch like she belonged there. She spoke quickly, explaining that the party had gotten out of hand, that people had been drinking too much, that the video angle made things look worse than they were. She told me nothing happened. She told me I should not have shown up like that. What she did not ask was how I got the video. I noticed that immediately. I noticed how carefully she avoided mentioning iCloud, how she framed the upload as an accident without knowing I had seen the notification in real time. I noticed how she shifted blame toward the people filming while still defending them. She left angry when I did not agree with her version of events. The door closed harder than necessary. Silence filled the apartment again, but it was different now, sharper. Later that night, another message came in, this time from someone I did not expect. It was a short clip recorded from another phone. In it, Ria stood earlier at the same party, drink in hand, laughing loudly as she told a small group that I never checked on her, never showed up, never questioned anything. The clip ended with applause. I sat there watching it, understanding for the first time that the video was not the beginning of the night. It was the moment someone decided it would be funny to press record. And that was when I realized the notification had not interrupted something innocent. It had interrupted a story that had already been told without me. I did not sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed with the lights off, replaying not just what I saw, but how fast everyone else had reacted to it. The speed bothered me more than the images. Nothing about the party had been chaotic once I arrived. It had been coordinated. People knew exactly where to stand, who to speak for, and what words to use. They did not hesitate. That told me the story had already been decided. By morning, my phone was full, not with questions, but with instructions disguised as concern. Friends I barely spoke to anymore told me I should apologize for showing up unannounced. Others warned me that Ria was fragile and that my reaction had crossed a line. One message suggested that if I kept pressing, I would make things worse for both of us. Another implied that I was being watched more closely than I realized. I noticed something else. No one asked what I saw when I opened the door. No one asked what the video showed. They spoke as if the facts were irrelevant, as if the outcome mattered more than the truth. Ria came back later that afternoon. She did not knock. She walked in with the confidence of someone who believed the situation was still negotiable. She looked rested, composed, and prepared. Her tone was controlled, careful, almost professional. She told me the party had spiraled. She told me people had been drinking irresponsibly. She told me the men were acquaintances who misunderstood the situation. She told me nothing happened, repeating the phrase in different shapes without changing its meaning. She spoke for a long time. I let her. What stood out was not what she said, but what she avoided. She never once mentioned how the video appeared in my account. She described it as an accident without acknowledging the mechanics of how accidents actually happen. She framed the upload as someone else's mistake, not her own vulnerability. She focused on my arrival, my timing, my reaction, turning the night into something I had disrupted rather than something that had already occurred. When she left, she took the spare key without asking. That felt symbolic even then. The shift happened that evening when the second wave of messages arrived. This time, they were sharper. One friend told me I was spreading lies. Another accused me of violating Ria's privacy. Someone suggested I should consider how this would look if it got out. The implication was clear. Silence would protect me. Speaking would isolate me. Then I received the clip. It was short, poorly framed, and recorded earlier in the night. Ria stood near the kitchen island, drink in hand, swaying slightly. Her voice was louder than the others around her. She was laughing while explaining that I never checked on her, never showed up unexpectedly, never questioned her plans. The people around her laughed in response, not surprised, not uncomfortable. The clip ended before anything explicit happened, but the tone was unmistakable. She felt safe because she believed I was absent. I watched it several times, noticing the timestamp. It predated the iCloud video by nearly an hour. That was when the night rearranged itself in my mind. The video I saw had not been the beginning. It had been the payoff. I did not respond to anyone immediately. I went for a long walk instead, letting the city noise replace the looping thoughts. I realized something important during that walk. No one from the party had reached out to me directly except to manage me. No one had said they were confused. No one had admitted uncertainty. Everyone seemed aligned. Later, a name I did not expect appeared on my screen. Leah Monroe. I recognized it only because I had seen it in old photos Ria kept buried in her social feeds. Leah had not been around in months. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity won. She did not ask how I was. She did not offer sympathy. She told me she had seen the video circulating privately and that she knew I had not been meant to see it. She explained that the group had a habit of recording moments they found funny, humiliating, or shocking, then sharing them in private chats. The goal was entertainment, not accountability. Boundaries were flexible as long as everyone involved believed they were untouchable. She told me Ria was not the first person to be filmed like that. She told me she herself had left after realizing how easily the group rewrote reality when someone objected. I asked one question, and only one. I asked whether the bedroom had been an accident. Leah did not hesitate before answering. She explained that one of the men had been invited intentionally. He was not a stranger. He had been around before. The second man had come along because the night had already taken on a certain tone. The room at the end of the hallway was not random. It was the obvious next step. The most unsettling part was not the behavior itself. It was how ordinary Leah described it, as if this pattern had repeated often enough to feel normal. After the call ended, I sat in my car for a long time without turning the engine on. I realized that confronting Ria again would not produce new honesty. It would only produce a new version. When I did confront her, I kept my voice steady. I told her I knew the video was shared deliberately. I told her I knew one of the men was familiar. I told her I knew she had spoken openly about me earlier that night. I did not tell her how I knew. I did not mention Leah. Her reaction was immediate and revealing. She denied everything at first, then shifted to anger, then pivoted toward accusation. She told me I was spying. She told me I was violating her privacy. She told me I was obsessed. Each shift came faster than the last, like she was searching for a defense that would stick. Then she said something she could not take back. She said she knew about the video before I arrived at the party. She said it had already caused drama and that I should not have made it worse by showing up. The room went quiet after that. She realized what she had admitted only after the words had landed. That was the moment I stopped arguing entirely. There was nothing left to debate. The timeline was clear. The intent was clear. The risk calculation had simply failed. Over the next few days, the pressure intensified. Friends distanced themselves subtly, no longer messaging directly, communicating through mutual contacts instead. Plans we had shared were quietly canceled. Invitations stopped coming. The same people who had defended Ria began avoiding conversations that required consistency. The most interesting shift came when small contradictions surfaced. One person admitted they had deleted footage. Another mentioned that the second man had not been invited until late in the night. Stories stopped aligning. The collective certainty weakened. I did nothing to encourage it. I stepped back entirely, removing myself from shared spaces, shared plans, shared futures. I watched the structure collapse under its own weight. The final message of the week came from someone I did not recognize. It was brief and anonymous. It said only that the video still existed elsewhere and that loyalty had limits. I closed the message and put the phone down, understanding that what had started as a notification had turned into a fracture no one could fully control anymore. By the time the week ended, the silence had become louder than the arguments. Messages slowed, then stopped altogether. People who used to respond instantly now left me on read. Others stopped opening my messages at all. The shift was subtle enough to deny, but consistent enough to feel deliberate. It was not that I had been cut off. It was that I had been quietly relocated outside the circle. Ria did not contact me again. That absence felt intentional rather than emotional. She had chosen a position and was holding it. What surprised me was how quickly others followed her lead, even those who had once claimed neutrality. It became clear that staying close to her meant staying distant from me. The first real crack came from someone I did not expect to hear from again. His name was Jonah Pike, a guy I had met maybe twice at gatherings I barely remembered. He sent a message late one night asking if we could talk. He did not explain why. He did not apologize. He simply said he wanted to clear something up. We met at a bar near his apartment, a quiet place that did not fit the party image I associated with him. He looked uncomfortable as soon as I sat down, glancing around as if worried someone might recognize him. He spoke carefully at first, choosing words that created distance rather than connection. He told me he had been at the party and that he had seen more than he expected. What he said next shifted everything. He told me that after I left the house, the mood inside had not returned to normal. It had hardened. People had argued in small clusters, not about what happened, but about how it looked. Someone mentioned that the video had already been uploaded and that Ria knew. Someone else laughed and said it was fine because I would never see it. When it became clear that I had, panic set in. Jonah admitted he had filmed a second clip later in the night, not out of malice, but because he felt uneasy about how fast everyone moved to erase what had happened. He said he deleted it after being pressured to do so. He said he regretted that now. That was the first betrayal that felt accidental rather than strategic. The second came the next morning. I woke up to a message from Maya Redford, someone Ria had described as one of her closest friends. The message was short and awkward, asking if I wanted to know the truth. We met in a parking lot because she said she did not want to be seen with me anywhere familiar. Maya did not waste time. She told me that the story Ria had been telling people was already unraveling. She admitted she had helped block the bedroom door when I first arrived. She admitted she had repeated Ria's version of events to others without verifying anything. She admitted she had done it because that was what was expected of her. What changed her mind was not guilt. It was fear. Maya explained that Ria had started accusing others privately, claiming that someone else had leaked the video intentionally to sabotage her. She was naming people. She was rewriting alliances. Maya realized that loyalty offered no protection once control slipped. Maya also revealed something worse. The man who stayed behind when I entered the bedroom was not a stranger. He had been texting Ria for weeks. Not casually. Regularly. The second man had been brought along because the night had already crossed a line and no one wanted to stop it. That made the video feel less like evidence and more like documentation. I thanked Maya and left without drama. I did not argue with her. I did not ask for proof. The consistency of what I was hearing mattered more than any single detail. The real turning point came when the video resurfaced. It did not appear online publicly. It did not get posted to social media. It landed in a group chat I was not supposed to be part of, forwarded to me by someone whose name I did not recognize. The clip was longer than the one I had seen originally. It showed the hallway again, but this time the camera followed all the way into the bedroom. It did not show explicit acts. It showed enough. Enough to erase plausible deniability. Enough to contradict every version Ria had shared. Enough to implicate several people who had sworn nothing happened. I did not respond to the sender. I did not forward it. I saved it and shut my phone off. By that afternoon, I started hearing indirect consequences. Ria had left work early after an uncomfortable conversation. One friend had canceled a planned trip. Another had blocked me preemptively, as if silence could serve as a shield. When Ria finally contacted me, it was not with anger or denial. It was with urgency. She asked to meet. She did not apologize. She framed the request as necessary, not emotional. We met in a public place she chose, one far enough from familiar neighborhoods to avoid accidental encounters. She looked tired, not regretful. Defensive exhaustion clung to her posture. She told me people were turning against her. She told me someone was leaking footage. She told me this had gotten out of control. I listened without interrupting. When I spoke, I did not accuse her of anything. I told her only that I knew she had known about the video before I arrived at the party. I told her I knew one of the men had been involved longer than she admitted. I told her I knew the group had tried to manage the narrative rather than face the truth. She reacted by changing direction. She accused me of orchestrating the leaks. She accused me of turning people against her. She accused me of being calculated. She said I had ruined her life. That accusation revealed more than any confession could have. I told her I had done nothing publicly and that the collapse she was experiencing was the result of too many people knowing different versions of the same night. I told her lies did not fail because someone exposes them. They fail because they require too much maintenance. She left abruptly, not because the conversation was over, but because it was no longer working in her favor. The fallout accelerated after that. One friend publicly distanced herself from Ria. Another quietly quit the shared group chats. Invitations dried up. Plans dissolved. The social gravity that had once protected her reversed direction, pulling people away rather than holding them close. I remained on the outside, watching from a distance, aware that the story was no longer mine to manage. The final twist of the part came unexpectedly. I received a message from someone inside Ria's workplace. They did not ask questions. They did not offer sympathy. They told me only that the video had been discussed in a meeting they were not supposed to talk about. It had not been shown. It had been referenced. That was enough. I sat with that information longer than anything else. The damage was no longer private. It was procedural. By the end of the week, Ria's social protection had fractured beyond repair. People were no longer defending her version of events. They were defending their distance from it. And I realized something that unsettled me. The notification had not exposed her. It had exposed how many people were willing to help hide the truth until hiding it became too risky. By the time the week broke open, the story no longer belonged to anyone who wanted to control it. That was the strange part. There was no single explosion, no dramatic reveal that forced the truth into the open. Instead, it spread sideways, quietly, carried by people who were no longer interested in protecting someone else's version of events. I noticed it first in small ways. Mutual contacts stopped using careful language. They stopped checking which details they could safely mention around me. Names came up casually that had previously been avoided. The night of the party became a reference point rather than a secret. People spoke about it the way they spoke about weather damage after a storm, something that had happened and could not be undone. Ria did not reach out again after our last meeting. That silence was not mutual. I knew she was talking to others. I knew she was trying to stabilize what remained of her social footing. What surprised me was how quickly people stopped responding to that effort. The energy required to keep defending her had become too high. Distance was easier. The final confrontation did not come from me. It came from consequences. I learned through indirect channels that her workplace had changed its tone toward her. No accusations were made. No formal action was announced. She was simply removed from projects that required trust and discretion. Meetings happened without her. Responsibilities were reassigned without explanation. The shift was subtle enough to deny, but decisive enough to feel permanent. I also learned that 2 people from the party had stopped speaking to her entirely. One of them had been blamed privately for the leak. The other had realized too late that loyalty only mattered when it flowed in one direction. I never shared the video publicly. I never forwarded it. I never threatened anyone with it. That decision was intentional. I wanted the collapse to happen without my fingerprints on it. I wanted the truth to move on its own, because that was the only way it could not be reframed as revenge. The last message I received from Ria arrived unexpectedly, days after I thought she had decided silence was safer. It was short and practical, asking when she could pick up the remaining things she had left at my apartment. There was no apology in it. There was no anger either. It read like a transaction that had been delayed. She came by while I was home. We did not argue. We did not revisit the night. She collected her belongings methodically, checking drawers, opening closets, making sure nothing was forgotten. The space felt different with her in it, smaller, as if the walls remembered something neither of us wanted to name. Before she left, she paused and said that she never meant for things to end this way. I did not respond. Intent had stopped mattering to me. After the door closed, I sat on the floor for a long time without moving. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because the quiet felt unfamiliar. For weeks, my attention had been pulled outward, reacting to messages, conversations, revelations. Now there was nothing demanding my response. The absence of pressure felt heavier than the pressure itself. The fallout continued without me. I heard that the group chat where the video had originally circulated was shut down entirely. I heard that people who had laughed that night avoided one another in public. I heard that someone had tried to blame the situation on alcohol alone and had been shut down immediately. No one wanted to own the explanation anymore. What stayed with me most was not the betrayal, but the efficiency with which people had initially agreed to erase it. The coordination. The shared understanding that the truth was flexible as long as it stayed inconvenient. That realization changed how I saw more than just that relationship. Weeks later, I ran into Leah again by chance. She looked relieved, lighter than the last time we spoke. She told me she was done feeling like she had escaped something while others were still trapped in it. She said watching the group unravel had confirmed that leaving had been the right decision. We talked briefly, then went our separate ways. The video never resurfaced publicly, not because it disappeared, but because it no longer needed to. Enough people had seen enough to draw their own conclusions. Enough contradictions existed to make denial exhausting. I thought often about the notification itself, about how close it had come to being ignored, about how easily I could have swiped it away and gone on believing the version of my life that required the least resistance. That thought unsettled me more than anything else. Nothing about the ending felt dramatic. There was no moment where everything snapped into place. There was only a gradual settling, like dust after something heavy collapses. I moved apartments a month later, not because I needed to escape memories, but because I wanted a space that had not been shaped around a lie. I replaced furniture. I changed routines. I stopped explaining the situation to people who asked out of curiosity rather than concern. The last consequence arrived quietly. Someone from Ria's circle messaged me long after the situation had cooled. They said they were sorry for how they had treated me. They admitted they had known more than they had said at the time. They did not ask for forgiveness. They simply acknowledged the cost of choosing comfort over honesty. I read the message and did not reply. The story ended not with closure, but with clarity. I understood that the night of the party had not destroyed something good. It had revealed something fragile that was already relying on silence to survive. The notification had not ruined my life. It had shortened a lie that would have taken years to collapse on its own. And that was the consequence that mattered most.
High rep workouts, whether that be called Pilates or whether that be called bar or any other type of sculpting, whatever toning workouts. If the reps are too high, even if you are burning and shaking and quaking, but you're not reaching mechanical muscle failure, it's not a very effective or potent stimulus for muscle growth.
Got it.
So how to know the difference between if you are burning and your muscles are fatigued, but you're not at true failure is what I call the rest test. So this is a really valuable tool that anyone can know whether or not you have reached muscular failure in under 30 reps. After your final rep, let's say you're doing 15 reps of a bicep curl, just to keep it really simple. Let's say you do 15 reps. Your final rep is like really slow, really hard. You're like, I cannot physically do another